So let's have a big fat argument now. Let's talk about something that nobody wants to touch. Abortion and abortion rights. Will the Trump Supreme Court overturn Roe v. Wade? Well, let's discuss abortion and abortion rights. Before we discuss abortion, because most people, especially guys, but women included who are supposed to have these rights, maybe are missing the concept of what abortion is. Well, it's a termination of a, fetus. Like it's a piece of corn on the cob or something. So let's discuss, first of all, what does the word pregnant mean? Let's start with the word, honey, I'm pregnant. I'm not, but the wife would say that, right? I'm pregnant. Here's the definition right out of Webster's fine online dictionary. It says that the period from conception to birth, after the egg is fertilized by a sperm and then implanted in the lining of the uterus, it develops into the placenta and embryo, and later into a fetus. Pregnancy usually lasts for 40 weeks, 9 months, beginning from the first day of the woman's last menstrual period, and is divided into 3 trimesters, each lasting 3 months. So when you hear third trimester, that's within the last trimester, or between 6 and 9 months. But let's just go to pregnancy is right after the menstrual cycle. The woman goes into the bathroom with that $1.92 kit that they buy at CVS, and she yells out the door, honey, I'm pregnant, or oh no, I'm pregnant, or he says, oh no, you're pregnant? So then they have to decide, do they want to carry this pregnancy to full term and have a child? Or do they wish to say, no, I'd like to abort? We're going to discover what the word abort means too. Would I like to abort, terminate this pregnancy? Which we now know begins when the egg is fertilized. That's when pregnancy starts. When the little thing goes to the plus and says, yep, you're pregnant. So at the end of the first month, the embryo is about 1/3 of an inch long. That's it. And its head and trunk, if you will, torso, plus the beginnings of arms and legs have started to develop. The embryo receives nutrients and eliminates waste through the umbilical cord and the placenta. By the end of the first month, the liver and the digestive system of the baby begins to develop, and the heart starts to beat. That's the end of the first month. Not trimester, first month in the pregnancy. So let's move on into the second month. The second month, in this month, the heart starts to pump, and the nervous system, including the brain and the spinal cord, begins to develop. This now fetus is or baby, if you will, is already about 1 inch long, 2.5 centimeters. And it has complete cartilage skeleton. So the body itself is already formed going into the second month. And it's replaced by bone cells by the end of the month. Arms and legs and all of the major organs, fingers, toes, begin to appear. And facial features begin to form. Just so you know, ladies, that's only the second month. Now, let's get into the third month, because this is where it all happens. Third month, first trimester. By now, the fetus has grown to 4 inches long. This can be seen in that ultrasound, and weighs a little more than 1 ounce. And now the major blood vessels and the roof of the mouth are almost completed. As the face starts to take on a more recognizably human appearance, fingers and toes all are intact and they appear. All major organs are now beginning to form. The kidneys are now functional, and the chambers of the heart are all complete. So that baby is a viable baby at the point of the end of the 3rd month, a third the way through the 40-week pregnancy. Now, let's get into, now we know what pregnancy is. It begins at the fertilization of the egg in the womb. Let's discover what the description is, just so you know, ladies and gentlemen, what the word or the term to abort means. To abort, it's a verb, and it means to terminate a procedure prematurely. Example, it gives in Merriam-Webster's dictionary, the pilot decided to abort the trip due to mechanical difficulties. So the trip was heading to California from New York, and mechanical difficulties appeared in the plane, and the pilot turned that around heading toward California and aborted or prematurely terminated the procedure or the flight to California. It turned around and came back to the beginning. So therefore, a woman decides to prematurely terminate a pregnancy. That is the period from conception to birth. That's what abortion is, to terminate a pregnancy at any stage, from the time the sperm and egg get together until the baby cries in the hospital and a child is born. So a woman has she says, the right, and we have to find out, well, where did you get that right, ladies? Where did you get that right? From Roe v. Wade? Well, we're going to have to discuss that. There is a thing called the Unborn Victims Act of 2004, which you should know about. The Unborn Victims of Violence Act, Public Law 108-2-2, is the United States law which recognizes that a fetus, utero, in the uterus, is a legal victim. That fetus, victim, human, has rights according to the Unborn Victims of Violence Act of 2004. We'll get into that toward the end of this little speech when I bring up the Scott Lacey Connor Peterson case from California that happened back in 2002. Now, a fetus in utero is a legal victim if they're injured or killed during the commission of any of over 60 listed federal crimes of violence. Then the law defines a child in utero as a member of the species Homo sapien. It's a man, it's a woman, it's a girl, it's a boy, it's a child. It's whatever it's going to be in utero. It is a victim. It has victims' rights. And it's defined as a Homo sapien at any stage of development, from little sperm egg all the way to baby born, who is carried in the womb a pregnancy. So a pregnant woman, your child has victims' rights as the beginning of life. Now, let's talk about the law. The legislation was both hailed and vilified by various legal observers, obviously, who interpreted the measure as a step toward granting legal personhood to human fetuses, even though the bill explicitly contained a provision accepting abortion, stating that the bill would not be construed to permit the prosecution of any person for conduct relating to an abortion for which the consent of the pregnant woman is taken into consideration. In other words, what some states tried to do is apply that law, the victim of violence law, to women who used drugs or drank alcohol during their pregnancy. So they were going to do violence or harm to the fetus, which they are going to do, but the court determined that this law, victimization of a fetus law, was not going to allow states or anybody else to prosecute a woman who, by choice, decided that they were going to knowingly harm their child by smoking, drinking, or using drugs. Okay. A person authorized by law to act on her behalf. A doctor couldn't say, all right, she's using drugs, I'm going to sign off that she's violating that law. So no person, medical doctor, no lawyer, nothing could misconstrue that law to include women using drugs and smoking and so forth with respect to her unborn child. However, this is the however part of that law. This is what you got to get in your head, because I'm going to come to a conclusion pretty soon. The law says, however, the reticence of a federal law to authorize federal prosecution of a particular act committed under federal jurisdiction, Roe v. Wade, etc., does not prevent states from passing their own laws against the act committed under their jurisdiction. So states, state by state, can enact all the laws they want regarding abortion, criminal offenses to a fetus treated as a human being, and he has or she has victims' rights available. So now we have to ask, can Roe v. Wade be overturned by the Supreme Judicial Court? The answer is yes, and here's why. Let's enter Congress. Paul Ryan and Congress. He is trying to develop what's called the Sanctity of Human Life Act. It hasn't gotten any traction yet, but let me explain to you what that's about. The Sanctity of Human Life Act, it's the text of the bill that he proposes to Congress and has the support of many Republicans in Congress, say this, that the fetus has a right to life. It's guaranteed by the Constitution, vested in each human being, and is the paramount and most fundamental right of a person. And the life of each human being begins with fertilization, cloning, or its functional equivalent, irrespective of sex, health, function, or disability, and the act goes on to say, or defect, or stage of biological development, or condition of dependency, at which time every human being shall have all the legal and constitutional attributes and privileges of personhood. So Ryan's act or law that he's trying to engage right now is Sanctity of Life Act, means basically any fetus has all of the same rights as any other human being. The Congress affirms, he says, that the Congress says each state, that the Congress, then each state, including the District of Columbia and all the United States territories, have the authority to protect the lives of all human beings residing in its respective jurisdictions. He wants statewide control over any laws affecting a fetus, whether it's abortion or the 2004 Act protecting the right of an unborn fetus, like in the Scott Peterson case that I'll get to in a minute. Now, just so you know, currently 38 states out of the 50 have laws making the death of a fetus a crime. Scott Peterson's situation happened in, of all the places you'd never believe has the law to protect the fetus, California. But let me go on. 38 states have laws making the death of a fetus a crime. 23 states of those apply fetal homicide to the earliest stages of pregnancy, from the in vitro fertilization of an egg all the way through the birth of a child. So 23 states apply fetal homicide. For example, if some criminal comes up to a woman, she's pregnant, innocent lady walking out of a grocery store, and he shoots her and she's pregnant. Doesn't matter if she's pregnant by, looking at the stick and it says plus, she's pregnant. Then he is guilty of the crime of double homicide. Now think about that for a moment. Killing the woman is a homicide. Killing the fetus is a homicide. But SJC has ruled, and so did the Violence Against Fetus Act of 2004, has ruled that abortion is not included in fetal homicides. Okay, so you don't have to worry about that yet. But we have Donald Trump appearing on the scene, do we not? So the Unborn Victims of Violence Act of 2004 that I just told you about has brought this feticide, homicide to a fetus law into the forefront. And it explicitly states that their provisions do not apply to abortions. A personhood amendment would guarantee all the rights and privileges to eggs, embryos. Now, if you remember or you pay attention to your news, there are some women who are suing to keep the embryos that were frozen for a later pregnancy from a husband that they are now divorced from. So the laws, they be a-changing almost on a regular basis, which is why the SJC is going to have to address these issues probably during the first year of the Trump administration. Now, that privilege to fetuses goes to eggs, which are frozen, embryos, which are frozen, fetuses guaranteed, granted by the 14th Amendment. Now, the 14th Amendment, all that is, well, I'll go to that in a minute. I won't get there now. But it doesn't affect, it doesn't call a fetus a person, and that 14th Amendment has no rights other than the right to privacy. That's all the 14th Amendment is about, which is where the women got this. We have rights. The right that Roe v. Wade has given women has nothing to do really with the fetus or abortions or anything like that. It has the right, according to a 7-2 vote in the Supreme Court for Roe v. Wade, it was the right under the 14th Amendment, the right to privacy, which is where gays and so forth have received laws favoring their status. And then President Obama in 2009, first year in office, gave them the status of an unprotected, or rather a protected class, like a senior citizen or African American or whatever. Now gays have the same protected class. As of 2009, President Barack Hussein Obama. Now, by doing this embryo egg law that they're trying to establish, by doing this, it triggers the collapse clause, clause D of the Roe v. Wade amendment, which says this: the appellee and certain amici argue that the fetus is a person within the language and meaning of the 14th Amendment, and that a fetus is a person within the meaning of that 14th Amendment. That's been shot down by the court after court after court. So the lawyers who are stepping up to the plate saying, under the 14th Amendment, the Rights of Privacy Act, a fetus all the way from an egg and an embryo has certain rights. Again, I'm just repeating, that's been shot down so far. In support of this, they outline at length and in detail the well-known facts of fetal development. If this suggestion of personhood is established, then the appellant's case, of course, collapses 410 U.S. 113, 157 for the fetus's right to life. It would then be guaranteed specifically by the 14th Amendment. The appellant conceded as much on re-argument, the appellate court. On the other hand, the appellate conceded on re-argument 52, that says nothing, it's just too technical, but I'm going to blast through it, that no case could be cited that holds that a fetus is a person within the meaning of the 14th Amendment, which is what I've been saying basically all along here. The 14th Amendment, just for re-clarification, implies that a woman has a right to privacy and also does not recognize a fetus as a human life. Yet, in the case of Roe v. Wade, there was a Justice Rehnquist on the court, and he was a dissenter of the abortion rights, or Roe v. Wade. and there apparently was no question, he said, concerning the validity of this provision or any other of other state statutes when the 14th Amendment was adopted way back with the Founding Fathers. That's why he dissented. He said, therefore, in my view, the drafters of Roe v. Wade did not intend to have the 14th Amendment withdraw from the states the power to legislate with respect to this matter. What he was saying in a nutshell is, look, I disagree with Roe v. Wade. What I think is that this court, Supreme Judicial Court, should refer all matters of abortion back to the individual states, which Donald Trump is absolutely all for. Yet, with Trump, you never know which way he's going to blow, left or right. Now, Roe, by the way, something else you probably did not know, there was nobody with the real name Roe. Roe, it was Roe, a woman in Texas, versus Wade. Wade was the prosecutor in Texas hearing Roe v. Wade. But the woman's actual real name was Norma McCorvey. And Norma McCorvey lately has recanted her beliefs and tried to reverse Roe, her, versus Wade, the prosecutor in Texas, which was overturned by the Texas court system and ultimately overturned by the Supreme Court. She said, it was my pseudonym, Jane Roe, which she used instead of Norma McCorvey, which had been used to create the right to abortion out of legal thin air. But Sarah Weddington, who was another complainant in the court system, and Linda Coffey, another abortion complainant, never told me that what I was signing would allow women to come up to me 15 or 20 years later and say, hey, thanks, Norma. Thank you for allowing me to have 5 or 6 abortions. Without you, it wouldn't have been possible. Now, Sarah Covington and the other complainants in the Roe v. Wade subsequent cases in the Supreme Court, what Norma here is, or Ray, if you want to call it, Roe v. Wade, what they never told her was they were using her Roe v. Wade as a form of birth control. She never intended that. Never. So she was trying to get Roe v. Wade overturned. And she said, we talked about truly desperate and needy women, women that were actually raped. And by the way, some women, the only way they could get away with before Roe v. Wade, with having an abortion in some states like Texas, was that they had to complain of they were raped. Well, the Texas court system took these same women to a trial, and they could not prove there was no police reports filed. So this one woman that I'm recalling now in the Texas court cases had to bring that baby all the way to full term, and she did. Otherwise, she would have faced going to jail. Now I can hear the women saying now, I'm not going back to the 50s, I'm not going back to the dark ages, I've got my rights. Remember, it's the right to privacy. The Trump Supreme Court, which is going to be nominated probably after 3 new justices in his first year or so, they're going to decide whether Rehnquist was right and that his dissension of Roe v. Wade was appropriate and that everything should be reverted back to the states. That's a distinct possibility that you're going to have to live with and face. So Norma did not ever think of Roe v. Wade as simple birth control. Birth control, use a condom. They got pills now. You don't have to have a baby. So how can it be an unwanted baby when you're not even practicing birth control? Anyway, so Norma said that she talked to this Sarah Covington and some other complainants, and said, you know, we talked about truly desperate and needy women, not women already wearing maternity clothes. It was supposed to be to not have to go to term through rape or, you know, the viability or life of the mother itself, which a medical doctor would say, look, it's either the wife dies or the child dies. And so the law says that the physician and the family decide which one of them dies. Okay, so the SJC overruled her desire to reverse Roe v. Wade in a nutshell. Now, let's go to that Scott Peterson case. Scott Peterson killed his pregnant wife and son, Connor. The kid already had a name, wasn't even born. It was a fetus, alleged fetus. Back in California in 2002. In 2004, Scott Peterson was convicted and got a death sentence, by the way. I'm sure he's still alive, and that was all the way back in 2004 when he was convicted of a double homicide of his wife Lacey and their unborn child Connor. Double homicide for killing a grown person, his wife Lacey, and a fetus. It's a homicide that he was charged with. This is why I'm thinking that Trump, who certainly favors life, as do most Catholics, which I'm not, by the way, and I'm not rendering an opinion one way or another. What I'm trying to say here is, this is the way the law is. This is the definition of pregnancy. This is the definition of a fetus that starts with the seed and the sperm and all the way to full term. I'm telling you what trimesters are because a lot of people aren't educated. They have no clue what's going on. But the quote from CNN or somebody said, on this day in 2004, Scott Peterson is convicted of murdering his wife Lacey and their unborn son Connor. Within a week, Scott Peterson was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances of double homicide, which opened the door for prosecutors to seek the death penalty which he received. Now, the Trump Supreme Court, which way is it going to go? Based on the dissension of Justice Rehnquist, who wanted to send the decisions back to the states, a new conservative SJC could easily overturn Roe v. Wade. Trump is going to be able to appoint a replacement for Justice Scalia immediately. In fact, this is January the 21st-ish. And I think he said that by next week, let's say by February 1st, he's going to present Congress with his choice, who is going to be almost a direct replacement, if not even tighter than Justice Scalia. And he is one that favors a reversal of Roe v. Wade. So the bad news is Trump will have 9 a full complement, 9 justices in the Supreme Court, and it's probably going to be 5 or 6 to 3. 5 or 6 conservative justices who may favor the overturning of Roe v. Wade, which is not really overturning it. What they're going to try to say is, look, we're handing this back to the states. Let the states decide if they want to prosecute on abortion, and if so, let them rule in their own court systems what it will be. When does a fetus begin life? Will there be consequences for women using drugs and so forth under the Violence Against a Fetus Act of 2004? We don't know yet. So there's something that, at least you're educated, you probably know by now at least what is a pregnancy, what an abortion is, and how the laws came about, and how they can be dismantled. And don't know which way it's going to go. It's going to be up to President Donald Trump and the Republican Congress, but you can probably figure it out for yourself. So I'll see you next time around. Take care and chew on that for a little while and see, you can make comments below. I'm sure it'll blow the site up. See you later.